Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are joining me from. This is Maria Malik, your corporate speaking coach. Today, we will be talking about the 5 overlooked superpowers of introverts in the workplace. So, a few weeks ago, I did a video on the 5 rude things that introverts do in the workplace that we might really not notice. So I thought today would be a good idea to kind of keep it a little bit more positive. I'm all about positivity and good vibes. So I wanted to bring it back to that. So we're going to talk about the actual superpowers that many introverts have that they do not realize they possess. So that's what we're covering today. And I'm hoping that this video really helps you introverts or us introverts see how powerful it actually can be to be an introvert. And I understand the workplace is a place where it's designed for extroverts, right? Those meetings, presentations, all that stuff. So we introverts have a bit of a hard time there, but this is going to help you recognize and see that introverts actually have a lot to offer. But before we get started, I do want to invite you to my next masterclass that is going to be on the 3 steps that you need to take to overcome your fear of public speaking if you're an introvert and get promoted faster. I'm actually so excited today because one of my clients just messaged me, and I get these messages all the time and I feel like I should talk about it more. But one of my clients actually messaged me. She did my program not too long ago, less than 6 months ago, completed the program, and she told me that she got a promotion, and I was like, yes. And she's an introvert. She had a hard time speaking up, and she told her boss, hey, I'm doing this program. Her boss noticed that, wow, she's actually seeing a lot of results and promoted her fairly quickly within 6 months. That's what I like to see. So if you are an introvert, you're afraid of public speaking, you don't know what to say, how to say it, and you want to get better at public speaking in the workplace, then this one is for you. Do join the masterclass. It's absolutely free. You can grab your seat at www.speakatwork.com. You can also go to my profile, which will have a direct link. So you just click on the link, grab your seat. I only have 100 spots available at a time, you guys. So please get your seat if you are interested, and there's only a few more of these left. So, and they're not recorded. You can't get them any other time. So join me live on my next masterclass, www.speakatwork.com. All right, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get back to our topic, which is talking about the 5 overlooked superpowers of introverts in the workplace. So many of you guys, in case you don't know, I was in the workplace for 10 years, complete introvert. So these are some of the things that I've learned, some of the things that I see, and some of the things I'm constantly learning and seeing with my clients. So here's the first thing, the first superpower that us introverts possess in the workplace that we might not recognize. And by the way, if you're an extrovert and you're watching, say extrovert. And if you're an introvert that's watching, say introvert. I want to know who you are, and I want to know where you are dialing in from. Let me know if you're an introvert, extrovert, and what city you're from. So do let me know in the chat box. Also, if you're an extrovert, I think this would be good for you as well to kind of recognize these signs in introverts. So the first superpower, as I like to call them, is that introverts are extremely, extremely self-sufficient. Now, this is great because that means that introverts do not need that extra supervision. They don't need that extra help. And I'll talk about why help necessarily, but they don't need that extra like person there to constantly assist them. Introverts, they're just so good at doing things on their own. It's because we don't want to talk to anyone. We just want to sit there, do our work, and get it done as soon as possible. So we don't need that extra supervision. And the great thing with that is because we're so self-sufficient, we find ways to get things done. So if one thing's not working, we're like, all right, we got to figure out another way, but I've got to get this done because I don't want to go and ask somebody for help. That's how tough it is sometimes for introverts to speak up. Even just asking somebody for help can be such a mission. So we've become very, very self-sufficient, and we are just completely reliant on ourselves because, again, we don't want to get up, talk to somebody, ask them for help, wait for them to come and help us. It's just that interaction. We like being on our own, and that makes us very, very self-sufficient, which I think is a superpower, especially in the workplace, because that means we don't need that extra help. We are going to get it done on our own. Of course, it is good to ask for help when you really, really need it, but after making sure that you absolutely cannot do it on your own. So that is the first superpower. So I think that's a big one. I really do think it's a big one, because when I was in the workplace, when I used to work, gosh, you guys, some of the things that, like, I have so many crazy stories to tell you guys, because the more I've been working with introverts now, I'm like, oh my gosh, me too, me too. Yes, I did that too. I did that too. But I would like die on every hill. Like, I would not want to go ask for help. I'm like, no, 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 I'm going to figure this out on my own, because me having to ask for help meant talking to other people. And I just loved being in my own bubble. Like, I'm at my desk, I've set up my desk how I want it. I don't even want to have to get up and speak to someone else. So because of that, I would find a way to get things done. Right. So I would literally sometimes sit there at my desk for 5-6 hours. Probably not the best thing, but I do recognize that as now being a superpower, being self-sufficient. So that is number one. By the way, do let me know in the chat box if you're an introvert, if you haven't already, or if you're an extrovert. I want to know who you are. And if you feel like you're in the middle, do let me know if that you're in the middle as well. That's perfectly fine, because some of us, depending on who you're around and where you are, does impact the way that we behave. All right. So just let me know if you're an introvert or an extrovert in the chat box. All right. Number 2, superpowers. And this one, I'm sure a lot of you can agree on, and a lot of you have probably felt, is that being an observer is a superpower. That means that you're just sitting there, you're taking in, you're processing all of this information, okay? Because you're naturally an observer. Introverts are natural observers. They look and feel things out before they actually say or take any sort of action. They're just constantly absorbing and processing information. So the reason why this is a superpower in the workplace is because I think that something like this saves a lot of time, because introverts then sit there, observe, they understand, they think about it before they actually approach somebody and say something or do something. So we have a natural talent to really look at things from so many different perspectives. So if somebody says to you that, I don't know, let me think of an example. If someone says to you that, oh, the budget is way off this year, right? We will think back, maybe look at, if the budget's actually in front of you, look at our own notes, take a look at everything before we actually say something. We're not just going to respond and say how or why, right? We will know how or why before we actually say something. So that, I think, alone saves so much time in the back and forth, because we're looking at our notes, we're thinking back to, hey, when was the last time we talked about this? And then we actually do something about it, right? So it saves a tremendous amount of time. We also think at a much deeper level. So because we're observers, because introverts are observers, we process things, I think, at a much, much deeper level than our friends, the extroverts, right? I know extroverts, they could be a little bit more blunt. As soon as they're thinking something, they will say it. But us introverts, like, we will really sit there and think about it and really wonder, okay, is this real, or is this actually happening, or am I just imagining things, right? We think of things in a much, much deeper level before we respond, before we speak. And I think that's a great thing, because we're not just blurting out things, and we're very cautious of what we're saying and how we're saying it. And I think that's also great for just people in general, because we're very careful with our words, right? And it's not always the best thing, because sometimes whatever you're feeling, you should say out loud. But I think a lot of the times, and especially now, people are a lot more sensitive. And like what I'm noticing in the workplace, you have to be extremely careful about what you're saying. So being an observer helps you kind of recognize these signs that, okay, this person does not like to be spoken this way, or these things are not okay to say. Because of that, we're very observant, we're very careful about what we say, because we think at a much, much deeper level than our friends, the extroverts. And the other thing is, I think that we see because we're observing, we see a lot of different perspective on things too. So introverts, let's say you're sitting in a meeting and everyone is talking, somebody says something to someone else, we will notice their reaction, right? Compared to other people who might not think much of it, or they might notice, oh yeah, that person maybe didn't like that. Okay, anyways, moving on. We introverts, we overthink things. We're constantly observing. So we'll look at that person and we'll recognize, okay, these are the things that this person did not like. This is what the other person said. This is what I need to make sure I don't say, or this is what I need to make sure that I say. And that's just how we process our thoughts. That's just how much emphasis we give on things, right? I know the problem then is that we become so observant that we forget to speak, or the whole meeting is over and we're just lost in our thoughts, right? If you agree with that, and if you feel like you're that way, where you come into a meeting and because you're still processing, you're thinking about all these things and what's going on and what you want to say, what you don't want to say, and you notice that the whole meeting has gone by, right? That's kind of the downside of it. But if you agree, or if you feel like you do that, do let me know. Just say yes in the chat box. I want to see who you are. But that just means, again, you're an observer. But I do think this is a superpower. Yes, we need to work on it a little bit, maybe not observe too much, but the observing that we do actually, again, saves time. It helps us think at a much deeper level. Because of that, we're very careful about what we say. All right, so we covered two things so far, self-sufficient and observers. Let's move on to number 3. Number 3 of the superpowers that I believe are overlooked in the workplace for introverts is that we are great at, and this one might be surprising to you, at building connections. Now, hear me out. This is what I mean. I know you might think that, wait, you're an introvert, or I know an introvert in my office, or you might be the introvert and you're like, wait, no, I don't like building connections. I don't like speaking to people. So what do you mean by that? So introverts, they're very, very selective with the people that they speak with and the friendships that they make. And they're very selective with who they interact with and what they say. So if you're an introvert and you've made friends, right? You've made genuine connections then. People that you do tend to speak to, these are genuine connections. So you don't like the small talk. You don't like, we just don't like saying, oh, hi, good morning. How was your day, right? I hated coming in and saying good morning. I just wanted to go to my desk, start working, and then eventually later I'd start talking to people. But most people would come and say, hey, good morning, good morning. And I was just like, oh my gosh, why do you have so much energy already? Right? So those connections that you do make, those people that you do say hi to in the morning, those are people that you actually really care about. And these are genuine connections. So you're not just making small talk, but you're talking to people. And when you're talking to them, you genuinely care about them. So if you're an extrovert and notice an introvert speaking to you more, know that this person actually truly cares about that relationship, right? Or else they would not be speaking to you in the first place. So I think that is huge. It's huge. Also, I generally think that introverts are more empathetic and they are better listeners than extroverts. And I think that's because going back to the observing, we're recognizing signs, we're recognizing emotions better, we're picking up on vibes, and we're picking up on everything a little bit more than I think what extroverts can do. And because we tend to listen a lot more, we build better connections. Because we're listening, we're constantly processing and understanding what the other person is saying or where they're coming from. So we are much better overall in building connections with people that we truly care about. So that is a huge superpower, because you have to build good, genuine connections in the workplace if you want to be successful. So lucky for us introverts, that's already there, right? So it's already there. We just have to fine tune it and make sure that we're not making other people feel like they're not important or whatnot. But once you find that person you really like and you build those connections with, they're usually there for a long time. Okay. So that's, again, a huge, huge superpower for introverts. Now, just a reminder one more time, if you are an introvert, first of all, tell me who you are, say introvert in the chat box. Do connect with me as well. I do want to build a whole kind of like I don't want to say army, because I feel like an army it just sounds kind of violent, but I want to build a safe place for introverts. I want to build a place where us introverts can come and just talk about these things, because I don't really see that on LinkedIn that much. I haven't seen kind of like a community of introverts on here. So do connect with me if you are an introvert and let me know who you are. I would love to know. So I was saying, if you're an introvert, sorry, I lost my trail of thought for a second, but if you are an introvert, also do join me live on my next masterclass, where I'm going to teach you how to speak better so that you can become more confident as a speaker. You can overcome that fear of public speaking and get promoted faster, because I know a lot of you guys want that and you don't know how to get there. Speaking is a great way to do it. So join me live on my next masterclass. I only have a very few of these left. So www.speakatwork.com. Do join me. So again, we talked about 3 superpowers. Wow, it's been a long day, you guys, already. Yes. So self-sufficient, observer, connections, great at building connections. Okay, so the 4th one. This one is that we are very, very self-aware. We have a lot of self-awareness. We know what we're doing, how we're feeling, what we look like at the time. We notice all these things, not only about the world, but about ourselves. So we're very, very self-aware. We're very good at recognizing our feelings and what we're thinking at the time. We're very, very good at that. And I think because of that, we become less distracted, right? Because we're so hyper-focused on these type of things that we don't get distracted that easily. And because of that, I think we also speak with a lot of caution. Now, when you're in the workplace, right, you do have to be careful about what you're saying and who you're saying it to. And introverts, to begin with, we don't like talking a lot, right? Because it's energy that's being exerted and we're like depleting our energy, especially by the end of the day, versus extroverts, where they are building up their energy. And by the time they leave the workplace, they're like pumped and they can like go do so many more things. As introverts, prefer to be at home, read a book, watch a new television series. By the way, I have no, if you know a good television series, please let me know, you guys. I've just been scrolling through Netflix, scrolling and scrolling, and I cannot find anything good to watch. So if you have any recommendations, let me know, please. I would love to hear them, especially for an introvert, because I feel like us introverts, we like similar type of shows. Maybe. I'm not 100% sure about that, but anytime another introvert refers a show to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, it was so good. So going back to being self-aware, we completely know what we're doing. Because we're such overthinkers that we know how we're behaving or what we're saying and how that's making somebody else feel, how that's making me feel, and what is going on in just all around you, right? Because we're such good observers. Because of that, we become very self-aware as well. So speaking with caution, it's great. It's a great idea. Being less distracted is going to be very helpful to you, because again, introverts already know what's going on. They're constantly looking and watching everything. So it's hard for us to get distracted. Okay. So I think that is also a great superpower that we need to be more aware of. And I think it's typically overlooked as, right? Being self-aware. I think some people think that, oh, you're so self-aware, or they think of it as a negative thing because they see that people that are self-aware, they're too caught up in their thoughts. And yeah, that is the case, but I think it's also very helpful, just because being self-aware means you know what to say, how to say it, and when to say it, which I think is very, very important in the workplace. So that is number 4. Lastly, the number 5 overlooked superpower of introverts in the workplace is resilience. The reason why I saved this for last is because I really, truly believe that this is my biggest superpower. I am so resilient, and I've seen many other introverts who are very, very resilient. And I'll tell you why. So most introverts, they're overlooked at when it comes to for promotions, just because the idea of a leader, the idea of who can lead and who can get promoted and move up and be a CEO, C-level executives, seniors, managers, all that, you always think of someone that's outspoken, that can just stand up in front of people and just speak and demand authority. and not be shy and quiet like us introverts typically are, right? So most of us are always overlooked for promotions, and most of us introverts are never given that much, I think, importance, because we're kind of like hermits. We'll just sit in a corner, do our work, come in, do our work, and then get things done and leave, right? So us introverts, I think we recognize that. We know that, hey, our like the things that are important, right? Where you're on your own getting things done, we get those done. And the thing about resilience, right? Resilience means you just keep trying. If one thing doesn't work, you just keep trying. So just like going back to being self-sufficient, introverts know, okay, I don't have that help, or I don't want to ask for that help. So let me just figure it out. If one thing doesn't work, let me try it a different way, right? So being resilient means that us introverts, we develop a lot of strategies and coping mechanisms to help us just be on our own and be okay. And I think that's why most introverts are okay being on their own, just because they're doing fine, right? They think, no, I don't really need anyone because I'm so used to this already. I'm so used to being overlooked at. I'm so used to being left alone. Part of it is our own fault. I'm not going to lie. It is our own fault. Maybe we don't try to be rude, but just blocking off people and, putting in your earphones and just sitting there does give off the wrong kind of idea that, hey, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to anyone, right? So being overlooked helps us develop those strategies and those coping mechanisms where we realize that this is just how it is. And you know what? I'm fine. We find ways to just keep ourselves entertained. Okay. And we don't need that constant like reassurance from our managers. It is nice to hear from your manager that, hey, introvert, you're doing a great job. Okay. I hate that I said that. Hey, introverts shouldn't be your entire personality trait, but it's a big part of it. But hey, Maria, you're doing a great job. Last week, the presentation you gave was amazing. Yes, it's great to hear, but we're okay not hearing that stuff because, again, we're so self-aware, we're so self-sufficient. We already understand, okay, how I did or how I didn't do. And I think we're very honest with ourselves too. If anything, we're too honest. Even if we do well, we tell ourselves, oh my gosh, that was terrible. What did I do? Right? And we just try to get better. So the reason why I said that resilience is my biggest superpower. And by the way, I want you to tell me, if you're an introvert, which one of these 5 things you think is your superpower. I know there's at least one. So are you very self-sufficient? If you're self-sufficient, say self-sufficient. Are you a good observer? If you're an introvert, are you a good observer? Right? You naturally should be, but is that your biggest superpower? What about building connections? Do you have very close-knit friends, but these connections have been there for so long and you guys really invest in these friendships and these coworkers? So is connection one of your biggest superpower? What about self-awareness? Are you typically aware of what you're doing, how you're doing it, what you're saying? Or number 5, resilience, where you just don't give up. And the reason why, again, resilience is my biggest superpower is because I just don't give up. And sometimes, like, it's exhausting. Sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, like my husband, my mom, my sister, my brothers, everyone says this. They're like, if you need anything done, like, go to Maria, because she will find a way, right? Like, I will find a way to get it done. And I try to find a way to get it done on my own, just because, again, being introvert, you want to do things by yourself. So resilience is so important, because that means if one thing doesn't work, you find another way. That doesn't work, you find another way. If that doesn't work, guess what? You find another way, right? That's how I think I am down to my core. Like, if one thing doesn't work, I keep trying and trying and trying. And because of that, I'm learning and learning and learning throughout the process, that by the end of it, by the time I figure it out, I have this wealth of knowledge. And now I know how to do whatever thing it is, right? And this is how I'm when it comes to everything, when it comes to cooking, when it comes to even just LinkedIn, the way that I've learned and grown my following on LinkedIn to over 100,000, right? I kept posting and posting. I'm like, what's going on? Okay, this didn't work. That didn't work. Let me try this. Okay, that didn't work. This worked. Let me try this again. It's that constant resilience, and we just don't give up, right? And that's definitely my biggest superpower, that I don't give up. So please tell me, which of these 5 is your biggest superpower? And again, these are things that are typically overlooked at, or they're seen as something not so positive, right? But I'm here to tell you that these 5, self-sufficient, being observant, building those connections, being more self-aware, recognizing your feelings and other people's feelings, and being resilient or you're developing coping mechanisms and learning to be on your own. These are your superpowers at the workplace. So I want you to utilize them, and I want these things to be your tools, your weapons, right? Use them to make yourself stand out in the workplace, right? We're already great at observing. Now you just need to learn how to kind of bring it out and speak more, which again, I would love to teach you at my masterclass, www.speakatwork.com. But these are your superpowers. Don't think of them as, hey, I'm an introvert, I don't belong here. No, we bring something very unique to the table. Okay. So recognize which one of these are yours. If you have all 5, awesome, which as an introvert, I think most of us, by the time we're older, we eventually develop all 5, but do let me know which of these 5 you feel like is your superpower. Again, mine is resilience, and I've told you why. Okay. So again, you guys, this was the 5 overlooked superpowers of introverts in the workplace. This was very good. I really like this. I think the more lives I'm doing, I'm actually really enjoying talking about introverts specifically in the workplace. So that is kind of my niche and who I like helping. But I think in the past, I focused a lot more on fears and the fears that we have when it comes to public speaking. But I do want to focus more on our personality traits, because the messages that I get from you guys tell me that, hey, this was really helpful. So if you found this helpful, do send me a DM. Let me know this was helpful. But I do go back and look at all my chat. I do have it open right now, but because I'm speaking, I try not to pay too much attention to it. Do let me know who you are, where you're from in the chat box, and let me know if you're going to be joining me on my next live masterclass. I have so much great information to share with you. I'm really looking forward to seeing you there. And again, if you're an introvert, connect with me, send me a DM. Let me know if there are other topics that you want me to discuss when it comes to being an introvert and being in the workplace. All right, you guys, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope you learned something today, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.